Friends, I just backed the gator up to the garden behind me. Now, in the fall, it's usually the time we kind of slow down in the vegetable garden. Things are kind of slowing up. Still harvesting lots of tomatoes, eggplant, kale, Swiss chard, beets, carrots. I need to dig the sweet potatoes. But this is also a time you think ahead to next year. And that means I'm planting garlic. What else would it be? Now, you know I love planting garlic because I think it's the easiest thing to do, and you get the most beautiful, flavor-forward garlic year after year because you can plant what you grew the prior year. Now, I have been planting garlic for, I don't know, 8 years maybe, and it's all now planted. I haven't purchased garlic to plant since the first year I planted, which we'll go over what type of garlic. But we just pulled up to the garden. And this is we, as in Kip and I here did, because he's my helper all the time. And we're going to go over all the basics of garlic planting. It's actually very simple. Honestly, I think it's the easiest thing you can do, but I think it's always fun to have a refresher and also just maybe be hopefully reminded and or inspired to do something you haven't done. So what I have with me, of course, is 2 types of garlic, and we'll talk about both of those. Now, this is what I harvested in late June, early July this year. And then I will say some of these got a little overripe, and that's why I'm gonna make sure to plant these. When they start opening up like that, this happened as when I harvested them, they already looked like this. They were just slightly overripe. But what I have here is a beautiful bed ready to go. Now, yes, I do usually plant my garlic in the same area. I don't have any disease issues with my garlic. In all actuality, it would probably be best if you changed where it was. But honestly, for me, this spot just really works the best, so I'm probably just still gonna do it. What I do is amend the soil every year by adding compost. And I think that is essential, not only because now I have a beautiful, look at this gorgeous soil I have to work with. It is nice and light and it works really well. So obviously adding compost does that. It also enriches the soil. It adds beautiful nutrients. So that is why I do it here every year. It's also just a stagnant spot where I have my rhubarb on one side, and I kind of put my garlic here. I did have zucchini planted here during the summer, and then of course it kind of just ended as zucchini does. And so it's again a perfect place to put my garlic, which honestly I'm pretty excited about. Now, when I do this, I will put the compost on last actually, and I'll show you why I'm gonna do that. I have 2 types of garlic, and they're both different obviously, and there's numerous varieties of garlic within these 2 types. So there is hardneck and softneck. Now, really, they have differences, but the big difference I find is that hardneck varieties get bigger, more beautiful bulbs usually. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous, but they don't store as long in the winter. So these were harvested in early July. They're gonna probably start drying out for me in the house late December usually, where softneck can usually last longer. They keep better. So I try to do both so I can use up my hardneck maybe, so it doesn't dry up, which if it's starting to dry up, grind it up or dry it out fully and make beautiful garlic powder, dried garlic to use and things. So I have both types here because I like to play off of each other, have both types. Really the name comes from hardneck has a very hard central stem that even when you cut it, it's very rigid. Where softneck, you can sit here and it's just soft, kind of the same thing. The other big difference is hardneck varieties, when they grow, usually around early June, you'll get this big, tall central stem, and it will come out the top what looks like a flower wanting to bloom. It does want to bloom, that's called the scape. But you want to cut that off, and that always happens for me usually early June. I cut that off right when it starts to curl, because what that does is send all that energy it was trying to put into that bloom back into the bulb to finish it off and get even bigger and more beautiful. So those beautiful scapes, by the way, they taste amazing. Use them fresh, chopped up in like a chimichurri. You can use them in dressings. I also like to roast them. I like to make fresh pesto out of them. They're so good in so many things. So what I'm gonna do is get this ready. Now, usually I don't do too much to garlic, but today I am gonna make sure I add some biotone. Now, biotone usually you hear me talk about when I'm gonna be planting or transplanting something. It's really good for roots. Well, guess what garlic is really good at? Putting in roots into this soil. Now, I don't like to till my soil, so I am not going to till this in, but I am gonna add it and then work it in a little bit. Now, if you aren't used to biotone, by the way, it is a great way to add some great starter to anything you're gonna plant. It's not a heavy fertilizer. So what it does is more help give the roots exactly what they need to work into the soil. So you can see what I did to work that in was just use my hands. Now, yes, usually I say don't walk on your raised beds, don't squash the soil. That's what keeps it light and airy. When I did apply the biotone, I did step down the middle. Sometimes it's okay. I mean, the thing is you don't want to continually be driving on it or walking on it. You know, raised beds, the perfect part of them is that they create a lot of living organisms living together in this. And when you till a garden, you're breaking that apart, that microbiome that's in the soil. Instead, what we're doing is we're leaving it intact. That also means don't usually walk on it, but for this purpose, it worked okay to apply that. So what I have here is all my hardneck garlic from last year. And I usually like to start by digging a trench. Now, the easiest thing to think about is how big does your garlic get? Hardneck garlic varieties, it depends on what you get. Generally, if I give mine 4 to 6 inches in between each, it's going to be enough to generate enough room for that head. Now I'm digging a trench about 4 inches deep. Usually you want to plant it closer to 6 inches deep. I will top dress this with compost when I'm done. That will add another layer. So I'll actually probably do it around 5 inches deep because my compost will probably only add about an inch. And so what I'm doing is just digging out my trench because I find this is the easiest way that then you can just go in row by row. And I usually plant quite a few because, think of what I do. I'm recipe testing all the time for my website, Wyse Guide, all the videos I post, but also I'm cooking all the time for friends, I'm entertaining. I use a lot of garlic and I like it. So the most important thing to know is each head you need to break apart. It's the easiest thing. This is the beauty of this. Break it apart and each individual clove is what becomes a head of garlic the next year. So you can do this in a bowl if you want, but just make sure you break it all apart. Now look, some of these, they're gonna vary. But look how big some of these are. I mean, in my hand, this is 1 clove of garlic. Is that not beautiful? Now, when I am choosing, so I harvested, I let it cure, dry, I cut it and cleaned it off, the stems and everything. I picked the biggest, most beautiful heads of garlic. And that is what then I plant, because then that means every year you're getting a bigger, more beautiful, pretty much your own individual hybrid of garlic, because you're selecting the best of what you have. So if you don't have garlic, where do you order it from? You can order it online. There's some great places. I've ordered it online before. What you can also do is go to your local farmer's market, look for a local grower, buy garlic from them, because if that's growing in your area, it's gonna do well for you. So you just wanna do that. So I'm gonna start putting these in, and I'll let you come in closer so you can see. Super easy to have this trench and then cover them back up. That's as easy as it is. Now remember, the only thing you need to know really about planting each clove, that root end that's flat, that goes down. The point end should always be sticking up, because that's what's gonna grow out, and then this is all gonna have a whole new head around it. Once I learned that that's all it took to grow garlic, and that you plant it in the fall. Now let's talk about planting it in the fall, because that's what I'm doing right now, right? It is mid-September when I'm planting this. This video will definitely go up a little bit later than that, right? But you can plant this. I plant it pretty early, just because I think it gets it even more started. You can plant it, I'm in zone 5B, you can plant it anytime from mid-September through November. But what I like to do is plant it in September, so it gets a head start, because we have usually pretty warm Septembers. Still hopefully some rain, although it's been pretty dry here a little bit again. And what that does is it starts it growing. It's gonna sprout this year yet. It's gonna start sending roots out. And this is in a raised bed. And it is a foot above the ground pretty much, but it still has a lot of protection here. Then it's gonna sit dormant over the winter. That's the beautiful part of it. We don't do anything to it. It's just gonna sit dormant. And then during the winter, it'll be kind of ready to go. So next spring, it just pops out when it's beautiful and gets bigger, more beautiful. So planting it in the fall gives you bigger, more abundant growth on the heads. You can plant it in the early spring. You just don't get quite as big of garlic. And I think what a nice thing to know that you planted it this year, all the work is done. Next year you have to do nothing other than remove the scapes if it's hardneck, and then harvest it. It's kind of the best of both worlds, and it's in for all the spring rains. If you have a really wet or cold spring, you don't have to worry about getting out there. It's done and ready to go, and that to me is the best part, right? I got done planting my hardneck and my softneck. Now I probably planted 10 rows of hardneck with maybe about 10 cloves, 9 to 10 cloves in each. So yes, that's quite a few heads next year. And then probably about 6 rows of the softneck, which I might still plant 1 or 2 more. It sounds like a lot, and it is, but at the same time, when you use a lot, or you find more uses for it, I add garlic to everything. So I love it, and it's easy to plant. It's really gratifying. So now I'm gonna just top dress it with some compost. Now I'm using a Spelman's Land and Sea. I've been using this a lot this year because I have a little bit of a hiccup with my compost pile this year. I think I depleted, I usually have 3 piles going. And I have 2 this year, but I think I depleted the one too much because there's just some weed seeds in it and I need to let it sit and sterilize and just really compost down a little bit more. So I'm adding now this beautiful compost right on top, and it will work out to about 1 inch total. Now, usually what I do yet in late fall, so our leaves have not started dropping yet, but when they do, I like to pick some up with my mower that has a mulching attachment and bags them. And I like to add some just nice, beautiful mulched up leaves on top of this so they can compost in even more. I just think that's such a great way to add some great nutrients. So I'm just spreading this out. But the big question I always get, and I know I'm gonna get, is can you grow this in containers? My answer is I haven't done it, but absolutely you can. The idea with any container that you're gonna plant is winter may need a little bit more protection. So while this is a raised bed, it still is connected to the soil and it's very low to the overall ground, and it doesn't really freeze through. If your container is on the smaller side and just exposed in the winter, it could freeze all the way through, which could really kill the garlic in the end. So obviously, if it's really harsh where you are, I'm in zone 5B, we can get anywhere from -10, -20, sometimes polar vortex, -30, -40. And that would really be hard on them. So I have to watch, and I would say if it gets that cold, you'd have to set a container maybe way up against the house or put it into an unheated garage, which should be fine too. Also, containers heat up quicker. So if you have a pretty warm winter and it dries out, I would definitely want to give it some water because those roots are going to become active again. So the last step here I'm doing may look a little odd, but I've learned the hard way. So maybe you have cats, maybe you have neighborhood cats, maybe you just have some animals in the area. One thing that a raised bed can be is a litter box for animals. It's such nice loose soil, animals like to dig in it. And I find the best thing to do is when they're starting, you could put chicken wire down, put something down. I have some just old panel fencing here. And I lay this on top of everything planted. And that way nothing comes and tries to dig. Sometimes even biotone can attract certain things just because it smells really nice to animals. And the thing is, when you go to all this work, you don't want something to dig it up. So if you lay something down like chicken wire, like this fencing, whatever it is, you're gonna be able then to protect what you planted. Now, once it really starts sprouting, which will be in a few weeks, I'll let it grow a little bit. And when it gets big enough, I'm just going to take and remove this fencing because once it's big enough, nothing really bothers it. Within a really relatively little amount of time, we're talking 45 minutes to an hour, I was able to plant lots of garlic for next year. So this garden now, what's exciting to me about this garden is now thinking about the next year. I'm thinking about the next year, which I find exciting. So the garlic now, of course, I'll water it in, but otherwise I really don't water it a lot through the fall unless we're abnormally dry. Then maybe I will think about watering a little bit. As I'm coming back here to show you, my tomatoes are still in. They're starting to look a little haggard here. My mom's look much better, the ones I planted over there, but here, they're looking a little worse for wear. My hot peppers, so many still, I'm bringing them in, chopping them up, freezing them. I might make a fermented hot sauce yet, I'm not sure. And then my fall cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower under the cover here, it's looking good. So I've been obviously having to water that since we haven't been getting rain. But otherwise, I hope you can see now, garlic is easy. Maybe you have planted it a lot of times, maybe you're a pro. Whatever it is, garlic is fun to plant because you can do it the year before and then forget about it. It's like a set it and forget it. So I hope you're excited. I hope you're thinking about next year already because why not, right? As we wind down, we can rest our bodies, but we can already be thinking ahead to the next year. So I'm gonna do a few more things, of course, maybe plant some more garlic because there's a few rows left. Happy gardening.